Woohoo! It's Lent. I love Lent. Don't you love Lent? Who doesn't love Lent? You get to grow, you get to sacrifice. You know, I always feel like I'm getting so much closer to God every time I have to say no to meat or something like that. So it's a good deal. I love Lent. Lent is a little bit different. We're going to change our topics up a little bit, what we're going to talk about at Epic, because Lent is getting us ready for Easter. Easter is all about celebrating the resurrection. We're looking for the resurrection. But the only way that you can have a resurrection is if someone dies. Jesus had to die in order to be resurrected. So this bad thing had to happen, and Jesus was able to make something even better come out of it. So the stuff we're going to be talking about in Lent is heavy stuff. It's kind of sad stuff. So in a way, we can die to ourselves and we can rise with Jesus. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to kind of Lent. We're going to talk about some heavy stuff. So be ready. It's going to be fun, of course, all the time fun. But also it's going to be heavy. So just be prepared. I'm going to tell you a little story, kind of do a comparison to kind of get you ready, get you zoned in for what we're going to be talking about on the 8th at Epic. So there's two people. One of them is a traitor. One of them is a hypocrite. Okay, the traitor, we know, is Judas. The hypocrite is Peter. Judas and Peter. So let me tell you about these guys. They spent 3 years of their lives. They gave up everything they had, their families, their jobs, all this stuff. They gave up all this stuff so they could follow Jesus. Okay, they changed everything so they could follow Jesus. And they've been ministering with Jesus, they've been learning from Jesus, they've been eating with Jesus, staying with Jesus. They're like buddies now. They're really good friends. You know, how could you not be, you know, spending so much time together. And so that kind of makes the things that they did even a little bit worse because they are so close to Jesus. Judas, I think we know this, but Judas, we know, he sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. We went to the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and they gave him 30 pieces of silver, and then Judas showed them where Jesus was. And terrible thing, Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. So he used something good to betray Jesus. So that's pretty sad. And then Peter, everybody loves Peter because Peter is so gung-ho about everything. He's always the first one to answer Jesus' questions. He's like all in all the time, and we love Peter for that. But right before all this bad stuff happens to Jesus, Jesus tells Peter, he tells him the future and says, you are going to deny me 3 times. You're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter says, no, I would never deny you, Jesus. He says, I would never do it. And then after Judas betrays Jesus, Jesus gets taken away. Peter decides to follow kind of at a distance because he's afraid. And 3 people come up to Peter and say, hey, aren't you with that guy that they're carting away? Aren't you from the same town as that guy? And 3 times Peter says no. 3 times Peter says no. And he has a chance. Okay? Peter has a chance to, we don't know what would have happened if Peter would have stood up and said, yes, that is my friend, that is God, that is Jesus, you can't take him, he's a good man, he hasn't done anything wrong, I am with him. We don't know what would have happened, but Peter doesn't do that. Peter doesn't stand up, he doesn't man up. He's been saying all this stuff and doing all these things for such a long time, but when it comes down to it, Peter is a hypocrite. He does not walk the walk as well as talk the talk. He's just all talk. And so he fails, totally fails. And so we have this hypocrite, we have this traitor. It's really important, I think, super important, especially during Lent, to look at the difference of what happened to these guys. What did they do with that? Because both of them were incredibly ashamed. Both of them felt so guilty. They were so burdened by the sin, by what they had done. Judas committed suicide. Peter ended up becoming the pope, the first pope, the leader of the church. So, like, what happened? What did they do? And I think it's pretty clear when we think about it. Judas accepted forgiveness. Peter accepted forgiveness and Judas didn't. Judas had all this guilt and this shame and he just kept it. He locked it away. And he's like, I'm going to deal with this. You know, he didn't let go. He chose not to die to himself. He just held on to all that stuff and he just couldn't take it. And then he decided to commit suicide and he killed himself. Peter had all that guilt and shame and he held on to it. But then when Jesus offered him forgiveness, as he always does for all of us, Jesus is always offering forgiveness, Peter lets it go. He accepts forgiveness. He accepts forgiveness, and then Jesus is able to do amazing things. Peter decides to die to himself, let go of his pride. He gives away that guilt, that shame, and that burden. He gives it to Jesus, and then he's forgiven, and then Christ can do amazing things. Peter, in a way, is resurrected in that way, the same way Jesus died and was resurrected. Peter died to himself, died to his pride, and gave away all of his sin and sadness and brokenness, and then he became the leader of the church, one of the most important people that has ever existed in the history of the world. So, something for your thoughts. Keep that in your mind. We're going to kind of go more into the details of that story a little bit. Come epic, so it's going to be good. To get your prize, the way you do it, we have keywords. I think we're going to try to have them for every epic during Lent, but you relate these words. You take one of these words and you relate it to Jesus' life, to his story, and then that's how you get your prize. So the words are denial, betrayal, condemnation, and sorrow. All right? Denial, betrayal, condemnation, and sorrow. So take one of those words and relate it to Jesus' life, and then that's how you get your prize when you tell me about it. So pretty simple. 8th, be there, be square. It's going to be good, but it's also going to be deep. It's going to be heavy. So yeah, I think that's all. Party hardy, and Jesus loves you, and that's all. Goodbye.